So I wanted to mention this guy's name is Yuval Noah Harari. Yuval Noah Harari. And I was listening to an interview of him today, and this guy's considered to be one of the most intelligent human beings on the planet. And he said that, and he's got a lot of agreement about that. I mean, his books sell millions and millions of copies, right? And as I've been saying here, this book, Nexus, I consider to be a very important book. Not just because of the view that he gives us to understand and look at what's going on, but because this guy is somebody who has been practicing meditation for 20-something years now, and he goes to a retreat, like 90-day retreats every year. So he is a serious practitioner, and he has the experience of the truth. So when you consider that in relationship to the view he's giving us, right, it's a very important view. It's a very powerful view. And one of the things that he said in this interview was that he goes to psychotherapy every week. So you may ask yourself, why would one of the most intelligent people on the planet need psychotherapy? Especially, not only is he one of the most intelligent people on the planet, but he's also somebody who understands the truth. So given that he understands the truth and he's a serious practitioner, he practices 2 hours a day and goes to retreats for 90 days every year. This guy is a serious practitioner. And if you're that serious a practitioner, it's because you've tasted reality, right? But then the question still arises, so then why does he need psychotherapy? So here's what he said. He said, when I was a kid, I was by far the smartest kid in the class. Nobody was near me. He said everything was easy. Math, reading, all the things that you get schooled in, he said, were so easy for me. I could do those things and be the smartest kid in the class and have plenty of time to play. So I enjoyed it. But then when they realized how smart I was, they pulled me out of the class and sent me to a special school where only the brightest kids went. And when I went to the special school where only the brightest kids went, I wasn't the smartest kid in the class. Now I was just one of the smart kids. And he said, this was the worst experience in my life, because for the next 2 years, when I was in that class, all the smart kids tried to do was compete with one another to be the smartest of the smart kids. So he said it was horrible. You know, anytime a smart kid raised his hand and answered the question, somebody else in the class would say, that's not the right answer. And the smart kids would do their best to try and humiliate the teachers by how smart they were compared to the teachers, and humiliate each other by comparing themselves to how smart they were. So he said that was a terrible experience, and that left me with some trauma from that experience. So that's one thing. The other thing is, when they took the smartest kids and put them all in one class, all they attended to was developing their intellect and their intelligence and how much information they could process and so forth. They gave them no education in social skills. They gave them no education in managing your emotions. So he said, here I am now. I have an experience of what the truth is about who I am, and I'm still smart. I'm still very smart, but I have to go to therapy to help me learn how to deal with my emotions, and I have to go to therapy to deal with the circumstances that I'm in social situations, because I'm still developing my ability to be able to be sociable and be successful in a social situation. I think he's in his 50s. 49? Oh, okay. I knew he was somewhere in that area. I knew he wasn't a young man.
Interesting.
So it's interesting because he's really pointing to something that's important, right? It's one thing for us to understand the truth. It's one thing for you to understand your true nature. But it's another thing to practice paying attention to the fact that your conditioning, just like his conditioning, will come up and play in your mind all day long when it gets stimulated. And if you're not paying close attention to that from the awareness, if you're not paying close attention to that, then it will overrun you, it'll take you over, it'll use your mouth, it'll use your behavior to do things that are dysfunctional and destructive and create negative consequences, no matter how smart you are. Right? I have a client that I'm working with, and one of the things he was sharing with me, he has a new girlfriend, and he said that after they have been together for a while, he finds himself complaining to her, and he says to her, "You never give me accolades. You never tell me how handsome I am. You never tell me how good I am. You never tell me those kinds of things about me." And so he complained to her about it. "I'm not getting my needs met here. You're not telling me, you're not giving me some good feedback about myself." And she said, "Well, I'm sorry about that." She said, "I thought my expression of my appreciation for you was in the things that I do for you." So I was looking at that, and he came from he was an only child, right? So this is a perfect example of how conditioning works, right? His conditioning is telling him the people that I'm closest to should be giving me whatever I want. They should be telling me the things I want to hear from them. And if they're not doing that, then they're not doing what they should be doing. I should be complaining. But what he doesn't realize is he's behaving from a previous time. He's behaving from when he was an only child, and that was true when he was an only child. His parents gave him everything that he wanted. They were always telling him what a wonderful kid he was and everything, right? So now he has that expectation, right? And he's confused. He doesn't know the difference between then and now. So he's not a child anymore, and it's unrealistic for him to expect his girlfriend to behave like his parents did when he was an only child. This is the kind of thing you need psychotherapy for, because he can't see that. For him, when those thoughts come up, those thoughts are relative to what's happening now. He doesn't think about them in terms of that's not from now, it's from another time. But if I point it out to him, then he can see right away it's from another time. It's obvious it's from another time. And because he can see that it's from another time, he stops maintaining that expectation with his girlfriend, and then things go a lot smoother. Right? So this is very important, because in these teachings and practices, the understanding is the most important thing. This is what Balsekar was saying. The understanding is the most important thing, because there's nothing you can do. Once you see things as they are, the understanding is the most important thing. That you can just relax and let go, but you have to also pay attention to the mental activity, because it's going to keep serving up things from your past. It's very important to understand the conditioning is past. That's past. It's not present, and it's not future, right? So the mind and the thought process is continually serving up material from the past, thoughts from the past, feelings from the past. And if you don't know that's what's happening, and you take those thoughts and feelings to be related to what's happening now, right? Then you'll blame your partner for being the way they are, because the way they are is not the way they should be, because the way they should be is coming from a different time when you were younger, right? So it's very important to understand. This is why they say in Zen, the first thing is to wake up, and the second thing is to grow up. But in order to grow up, you may need some help, because you can't see. You don't have the insight into your own system, right? So if you sit down with somebody and let them listen to you talk about what you're doing, somebody who understands the way personalities develop, and then they can listen to you talk about your past experiences as a child and in relationship to your parents, then they can help you understand what's going on in your mind so that you don't suffer as much from that. They call that shadow work, right? They call it shadow work, and shadow work is an important part of the process, because you can be awake and still suffer because you're still confused about your identity, Because the thoughts and the feelings that play are playing from a prior understanding of yourself. That's not consistent with who you are now. It can even be more disturbing and frustrating and upsetting when you know who you really are, but you keep finding yourself operating from your emotions, and you keep finding yourself operating from your thoughts. This is why it's not over. You know, when you have an understanding of your true nature, that's the beginning, not the end, right? That's the beginning, not the end. Especially if you've done some work like going to retreats, where you've had an opportunity to spend 7 days with your mind, you know, then it gets a lot clearer what you're dealing with as far as your mind is concerned. So I said two things. One is coming to an understanding of your true nature, right? But don't forget that understanding of your true nature is an understanding. It's not an experience of your true nature, it's an understanding of your true nature. The experience of your true nature will still be hidden behind your ego or your personality. That's why you have to pay attention. That's why Paul Hederman says that the realistic thing that you can practice is paying attention to the mental activity, and as you watch the mental activity and the emotions that go along with that, be able to report, that's not me. That's not what I am. Yeah, the flipping out is because you're surviving. If you feel threatened, right, it's because you're surviving. And the threats that you feel can come from anywhere, anytime, because you're alone. Everything else is not you. You can be threatened by the weather, you can be threatened by other people, you can be threatened by money, you can be threatened by politics, you can be threatened by psychology, you can be threatened by anything, because it's just little you and everything else is not you. That's a threatening situation to be in, to do anything. You can't help anybody unless you know who you are. If you don't know who you are, all you're going to do is duplicate your conditioning with your children, that's all. You're just going to make them as crazy as you. That's the key to it all. If you have no clue to who you are, you're part of the problem, period. You're part of the problem because you're going to behave to protect yourself. That means you're going to be defensive and aggressive, even with the people closest to you. And if you're defensive and aggressive with the people closest to you, you're going to end up in a marriage that is a coping reality. You're just putting up with each other. You're putting up with each other, and you know you can't say too much or do anything that's going to upset the other person, because then you have to fight, right? So you have to just have to maintain the peace. Maintain the peace by never dealing with the actuality of what's going on, you know, by just trying to control everything all the time. But if you understand that who you take yourself to be doesn't exist, and because you understand that, you pay attention to it, so it's not in the way of your experiencing your true nature, then the possibility exists to experience your true nature. That's the only way it can happen. That's why Paul Hederman, you know, recently Paul Hederman has been really very clear, and, you know, he's been teaching this stuff for 35 years now. And he's got a very unique way of talking about it, right? That emphasizes the fact that who you take yourself to be can never get this and can never wake up, and that will never happen. And you don't hear too many teachers talking about it like that. A lot of the teachers talking about aspiring to realize your true nature, right? Which is an impossibility. That's not possible. The only meditation that is useful is the meditation you can do anytime, anywhere, under any circumstances.
So that's the short moments?
Yeah. But the short moments, it's important to understand. I was talking to somebody about this today. It's very important to understand the short moments. If you think when you're doing the short moments that you stop and do it, that's not it. The short moments only are the short moments when you're doing it at the same time you're living your life. The same time you're talking to people, the same time you're driving your car. Because then, yeah, if you stop, that's not short moments. In formal meditation, you're stopping and you're just practicing meditation. That develops your ability to pay attention. It develops your ability to cultivate the experience of what meditation is. But then if you can't experience that while you're in your life, what good is it?
Right.
It's got to be applicable when you're in your life. It's got to be applicable when your partner says something to you and it triggers an emotional reaction, and you're feeling the emotional reaction, and you have the ability to see it for what it really is. So it doesn't overtake you and make you protect yourself or defend yourself. Because when you know your true nature, there's nothing to protect. There's nothing to defend. That's why the 8 verses for training the mind are so truthful, because all the 8 verses of training the mind are saying is that you have nothing to protect. Practice experiencing yourself that way. You have nothing to protect. See, people who are in prison are in prison in prison. They're in the physical prison, and then they're in the mental prison in the physical prison, right? But when I was working with them and I got them to see that they could let go and come out of the mental prison, then the physical prison wasn't a physical prison either.